I am one of the co-founders of Odd Networks. We are a video streaming service. We do a little something called OTT, which a lot of people haven't heard of unless you're in the television space. OTT is over-the-top television, meaning that you're getting your TV through a Roku or Xbox or Apple TV or watching it on an iPad or something like that. So we're a distributor of over-the-top content. We've been doing that for about 3 years now, a little bit longer. And we actually spun this business out of the gaming industry, working with Jeff and Clark and Brian Corrigan and everybody else at Magler. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about what we've learned over the last several years doing it. I think our experiences could parlay into a lot of what other folks are either going through or going to be going through as you're starting a business, especially one that's been labeled a startup. So this is about startups. So what is a startup? There's an essay online written by Paul Graham called Startup Equals Growth. And that's the title right there with the equal sign and everything. Meaning that the definition of a startup is the business that's designed to grow. And everything about that business is based on its growth metrics. You make your decisions for high growth, you raise capital for high growth, you work for high growth, you put in those 80-hour weeks for high growth, everything is for growth. It's a business that is defined to grow fast. However, Paul Singh, another relatively well-known investor, stopped by the Capital Region, I guess it was more than a year ago now, 1 year exactly, thanks Kate. And he said something that's stuck with me ever since. He said maybe we should relook at the definition of a startup and what it means. Because there's a lot of connotations around that, and not all of them are good, meaning that the public at large outside of Silicon Valley looks at a startup and they think, okay, 2 kids in a garage trying to go for the stars and land something on the moon, right? A big, huge growth business. And maybe that's not what we're all about all the time. And maybe these are actually really good businesses and we're actually trying to go great businesses. We're not 2 kids in a garage and we have different aspirations. So I always thought, well, as we're looking at our company, Odd Networks, that started to seep in. Is like, I mean, we started out thinking, well, yeah, let's do a high growth business, but do we have to? Is that really necessary? Can you have a great business that's not a high growth business? So we kind of got to a point this past winter where we said, well, let's look at what we want from the business and define the requirements first. So what do you want the business to do? What are your objectives? Maybe in order to meet all your objectives, it is going to be a high growth business. Maybe you want a huge exit for $100 million someday. Maybe you want to be the next Facebook or Twitter or something like that. Maybe you want an IPO. Then yeah, you're going to be on a high growth track. Maybe you just want a good financial outcome for 4 co-founders. Maybe you just want to create something that's awesome and put your own little dent in the universe. But it's worth it to think carefully about all those things, and then even more importantly, what the implication is going to be. So imagine yourself at that high growth startup working 80 hours a week. Does that fit the lifestyle that you have? If you have a spouse or kids at home, probably not. If you're still in college or just out of college and you can see yourself living off ramen noodles and sleeping under the desk for a little while in a co-working space, probably you can probably pull it off, right? So there's not only what you want your business to be, but also what you want your lifestyle to be. So what are the requirements? And then secondly, about raising capital. So raising capital has always been something that's kind of associated with startups, especially in the tech business. Like you're not really a startup unless you raise capital. Or if you want to have a decent tech business, you got to raise capital. That's the first thing you do is go out and raise capital. So this summer I kind of made a resolution to read biographies, which by the way, I would recommend everyone do that. One of the ones that I read was Henry Ford's autobiography, which he wrote about his life in the founding of the Ford Motor Company. One of the things they did is he fully developed a car that could be mass produced before he raised a single penny. And he built it himself and figured out how to do it. He had more than prototypes. He had cars that he could prove out on the racetrack. They were high quality and good and could be mass produced. And then he raised $18,000 and started the Ford Motor Company. And then later on decided he didn't like his investors and bought them out. I think this quote that comes from him is something that's kind of important for us to remember, that just raising capital does not a business make. It takes the work. You've got the work. The work has to come first. And then when you do raise capital, that capital won't do anything for you. You've got to work. You've got to put the capital to work, which means you have to work. Your team has to work. You've got to come up with something. You've got to build things. I think that's a really important distinction. So I would like to redefine a business and a startup as one that serves its objectives. So you set out those objectives, the kind of, what's the lifestyle you want to have, what's the exit you want to have, what do you want to get out of this business, what do you want it to be like to work there, what do you want your employees to be there, be like, what do you want, what do you want to get out of it for the founders, and then continue to design and redesign your business around those objectives. A good business is simply one that serves its objectives. It doesn't have to be one that grows fast, doesn't have to be one that grows slow, doesn't have to be one that doesn't grow at all. It just has to serve its objectives. If it's doing that, it's a good business. All right, so redesigning Odd Network. So like I mentioned near the top, we kind of had set out to build a high growth startup. Let's try to go for a big exit. Let's go out and raise capital. Right when we were on the verge of closing a round of capital, we hadn't got a term sheet or anything like that. But we had one offered to us, and we could have taken it. We could have taken another, but we realized that as soon as we did that, the very next day after taking that term sheet, we would be raising our next round. And then after that round was raised, we would be raising our next round after that. We would be building a product, taking care of customers, spending time with our families. We would be raising money, constantly raising money, and kind of decided that, well, let's take another look at the business, and does this really want to be a high growth business? What do we want it to be, and what sort of things do we have to tweak in order to just make it a good business? What do we have to do so we don't run out of money in this pursuit for a high growth business, and just make it a good business? I'd be happy to talk with anybody afterwards. You can talk to Brian and Clark. Unfortunately, Mitch is not here. He's out on business. And we can talk about a lot of the details and the things that we did and the decisions that we had to make. But just for the sake of keeping it short tonight, I just want to jump into kind of our technology, what it is that we do, some of the pivots that we've made, and I have 1 minute to go. Thanks, Clark. And some of our awesome customers. So we are, like I said, a video streaming service. Our customers range anywhere from a price point of $5,000 per year all the way up to several $100,000 per year. It depends on how complex the technology needs that they have and what services they're getting from us. There we go. Okay, so first one, IT Pro Technology. So they're an online learning channel. So they have, you can watch them on the Apple TV, obviously, but they're on Roku and mobile and all that sorts of things. So this is kind of like lynda.com, except for IT training specifically. They're a great customer and have been with us since the very, very beginning. Another one is one called Ride TV. It's an equestrian lifestyle magazine, if you want to call it that, or channel. So think of HGTV, except for people who really like horses. So there's things in there about huge, ridiculous, very expensive ranches, to horse jumping competitions, to other live sports, and cowgirls. Another thing we do is something called PBR Live. That's professional bull riding. So some of you may have seen this. I didn't know too much. When we first heard about PBR, we thought the beer, right? Like, what do they want to do TV for? But this is a really great brand. They come around to Albany. They do a tour that goes all over the country. They do a show in Albany where there's a big competition there. I really suggest you go and check it out. It's really awesome. But anyway, they have a video channel that they distribute through us. And then lastly, if you've ever been in Saratoga during horse racing season, you'll see this on the bars pretty much everywhere in town, in the hotels. TVG, the horse racing channel. If you're watching TVG over a Roku or Apple device or iPhone, which you can't today, but in several weeks you will be able to, that's because of Odd Network's technology. So that's what we do. Thank you.